Okay, go ahead.
Okay, welcome everyone to this session about doing it right from the beginning. I'll explain a little bit more about what we mean with do it right from the beginning in a couple of minutes. I'm Klas Cullbrand and I'm the innovation manager at Resource, a strategic innovation program. I also have with me today Angelica, who is a communication officer at Resource, and she will help me through this session. This is the agenda for this breakout session. I will not go through it in detail whatsoever, but I just want to pop it up and show that I'll do some introduction here, and then we'll have 4 brilliant speakers, or in fact 5 brilliant speakers. And we will end with a panel discussion where we also invite you from the audience to post your questions in the chat. You can also post the questions in the chat throughout the presentations, and if we have the time, we will take the questions directly in connection with the presentations. Just a few words about Resource before I introduce the session further. We are, as I said, a strategic innovation program in Sweden. We want to support innovations that really enables material use within the planetary boundaries that we have. We only have one Earth. And by doing so, we hope also that we can contribute to making Sweden as a front runner in circular economy. More specifically than what we want to create new business opportunities for Swedish companies. We want to help create innovative, scalable solutions. We want to be where you can find new facts and knowledge for policy making. We want to be involved in a lot of international R&I cooperation. Short then how we are doing this, the major part of Resource goes to funding innovation projects. So that's the majority of what we are doing. But we are also a platform where we are gathering stakeholders. You can, for example, be a member of Resource. We are also starting up and hosting a lot of different seminars like this, for example, workshop, conferences, etc. We also have a function where we coach innovation and commercialization for companies. We have a yearly budget of around 8 to 10 million euros, and we are funded by the Swedish Energy Agency, the Swedish Innovation Agency, Vinnova, and the Governmental Research Council for Sustainable Development, Formas. So enough of that. Let's go to this topic of today, which is do it right from the beginning. What I would like to do is to explain this or introduce you to what we mean with doing it right from the beginning. And to do that, I would like to jump off or take a stand from the linear economy. And if I go through this really simplistic depiction of the linear economy, we can say that we start by digging something up from the ground. We make parts out of that. We combine the parts into a product. Through a service provider, we put the product on the market, where we use the product, we as users. And when we are done with that, we basically put it directly on the landfill, or in the best an idle, where we also recover some energy from the materials. Since way back, of course, we have understood that this is not sustainable. So we want to try to minimize this kind of leakage of materials. And what the circular economy then offers is this vision of us maintaining products in use for a longer period of time, keeping them in use for a long period of time. And when we've done that, we want to reuse them, reuse the products and materials and redistribute them. And when we're done with that, we would like to give the product a final chance of being refurbished or remanufactured. And finally, we would like to extract the materials or recycle the materials from the products. And this is, of course, very good. And this is something that we really need to be good at, and we need to do more of this. But it's easy now to, if we look at this simplistic view of the circular economy, it's easy to just think that, okay, we can just continue consume as we have always done, and these magic arrows, these reverse cycles will just solve it for us. But that's not the case. What we need to do is really rethink how we do things from the very beginning. So instead of putting all these materials into this cycle from the very beginning, we need to reduce the amount of materials that we put in from the very beginning. So we need to use less materials. We need to use the right materials. We need to already here create the correct business models where we, for example, prioritize function as opposed to owning the material. We really need to create the right business incentives here to also enable all these fantastic processes and these reverse cycles to happen already from the beginning. And in some way, embrace nature's concept of the circle of life where no waste exists, etc., etc. So this is what we're going to talk about today. And the good news is that there are fantastic business opportunities, and this could be a lot of fun doing this. We can see companies out there already embracing this kind of concept. We have this company, for example, in offering edible packaging. This is during the London Marathon. We have companies offering free repairs for life, like Nudie are doing, for example. We see a lot of companies coming up with rental solutions as an alternative to owning a product. With that, I would like to stop this this introduction and introduce our first speaker of today. And he comes from the company NORNORM, Swedish fast-growing furniture company, and he will give his take on, or NORNORM's take on doing it right from the beginning. So please welcome the strategy director of NORNORM, Emil Steenhouwer.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to bring up my screen here. Let's see. I'm going to change. Cool. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be super fun. And I'm going to just start right away with showing a video here. So that was a short intro to NORNORM. and we're taking this company globally as we speak. And we started in August, so we have not yet turned 1 year, but I'm humble when I'm saying that we have already come quite far, and I think we have a lot to thank for that, because we have had a lot of good things that we decided from day one, and one of them is circularity, as Klas mentioned. And I think many looks at disruptions and what will be the new ways of working, and what happens now when you can work from anywhere, and how will that redefine the space? I mean, this week I'm sitting in Åre here and working from and using their skiing facilities in the early mornings and late nights. So what will happen with office furniture and home offices after COVID, when we can start moving and interacting with each other? Because it's quite interesting, because 100 years ago, most companies own their buildings. But today it's only 3 to 4% that own their buildings. And today we are also leasing our offices, coffee machines, copy machines, and even our plants. But nearly 100% still own their furnitures. And that is just telling me that is broken. So for us, it's all about, if you could stream furniture, NORNORM would be it. So we want to create the Netflix or Spotify of office and home office furnitures. And this is of course quite complicated, because it's physical goods and a lot of other parameters. But we also want to do this in a totally new business model that is fully circular, subscription-based furnishing model, which is flexible, affordable, and inspiring. And to do that, we need to change the business model in itself, and that is what we are doing today. So if you don't own, you can replace items that we can circulate to others, which makes it affordable for more. So by rethinking the new way of ownerships gives the possibility to actually start circulate it in things between each other, which is also making it more affordable and better for the planet. But we actually started off was to be good for people. And today, 8 out of 10 coworkers are dissatisfied with their current workspace, according to Ipsos. And this was before COVID, I want to mention. But we need to inspire people to work together and create creativity and productivity. And how to do it has changed due to COVID, I believe. And the need for flexible meeting spaces and collaboration spaces will increase. So we took the start and also created 3 basic looks, which is Nordic Light, Nordic Dark, and Nordic Black and White. And then we also tracked down the best furniture brands in the world, defined their iconic products. So we're super happy that we are working together with Hey, Herman Miller, Gemla, Martella, Hem, Takt, Silencio, and that they also want to work with us. But we're also trying to buy everything used, both from our existing customers and other places out there. So we are also delivering products and furnitures that are better than new. So, and then we also have a vision that other players can actually hand over their furniture to us, so we can circulate and deploy it to others, and they can also make money on it, like artists are making money when other people streams their songs on Spotify. But to be humble, I believe that we're not there yet, but that is our vision and where we are heading. But today we are owning our furnitures, but in a couple of years, I believe we can be one of the largest furniture companies that are not owning their furnitures. So we're using better than new and recycling furnitures as well. And if we do that, we also need to create timeless design, because the business model for me is having these furnitures deployed over and over and over again in order for us to be a profitable company and making money. And we are doing this for office spaces. And I think we can all agree on that office spaces will most likely look quite different after COVID. So we are doing, apart from classic workstations, everything that is like freestanding furnitures, which are collaboration areas, coffee areas, lounges, dining areas, etc. But we're also doing this for home office. So we can actually deliver home office to companies around the globe, and we are doing this today. And we have also innovated in producing several different office sets because we understand that people have different living situations. And the second part is that this needs to be good for business. It needs to be affordable with no investments, no long-term commitment, and you can also cancel it whenever. And by doing that, you probably think that this is probably quite expensive, but we rethink the model and we created a model where we charge only €1 per employee per day. So that is actually less than you are paying for your coffee. And including in that pricing, we deliver everything from designing your workspace, all the furniture you need, we deliver it, assemble it, and set it up. And we also have the flexibility of that you can change whenever. And we also remove the office when you cancel it, and etc. So the third thing is that we wanted to create a flexible solution, because for most businesses, the furniture is not what making their business. It is just an attribute of what you need. So if people is one, or if companies goes from 5 people to 500 people, they just want the office and the furniture to change with them, and they don't want to spend a lot of money and time on doing that. So we understand we need to be flexible, but if you as a customer want to change, you need to change like the sets and the need. You cannot change the specific products, and that is just for us to secure that we can circulate it to others and plan for it. So if a meeting room needs to change to a dining room, that is no problem for us. And if you're scaling up or scaling down, we will solve it for you. And this is a quite simple idea, but the complexity behind it is enormous. So we created switching days. So in Stockholm, we can switch one day, Gothenburg the other, and Amsterdam the third. And that is just for us to be able to do it in a circular way. So we're also building a new infrastructure, because what hit us is that there is no reverse logistics today. Everything is built around one-way delivery, so nothing is built for returning and also circulating to other. And by taking this approach and rethink it, we can actually control this, so we can define what to pick up and when. We also know what furniture and where they are. Everything is labeled with RFID tags, so we can track every move each furniture is making. And we can also find them and put them in carts and circulate them to other fast. And then we're also developing the perspective of no waste, because if you unpack furniture today, it is just an unproportionally amount of waste in terms of how much carbon, plastic, and air it is. So that we want to change. And we're also not seeing ourselves as a furniture company. We see ourselves as a tech company, because this is all about enabling technology. We have innovated around this perspective by using computer-aided design, so we can actually deliver a 3D floor plan proposal within 24 hours. So if you are out there thinking of how could you change your office tomorrow, and if you want to get some material that you can send to your boss or co-workers to get input, just send us an email with your floor plan, or just adding the information about the size and how it looked like. You can even draw it up on a napkin, and we can then send you back a repurposed area within 24 hours. You can also scan your stuff to understand what it is and how it is being used. We have the reverse logistics, and we also map up how your space is going to be used depending on how we design it and what layout it has. So this is an example of how an office could look like when we are drawing it, and how you can fly into it. And we have more than thousands of this, and we have put in more than 10,000 hours, so you don't have to do it. And all is iterated around creativity, productivity, and well-being, and also circularity. So basically, send us your floor plan. You can select and choose your styles and add what needs you have. And then we send you a proposal that you approve, and we can then deliver in weeks, which is also unheard of today. So, but why did we enter this? What is our vision behind this initiative? And for me, it has all been about being good for people and good for the planet, because our vision is that we want to create a better work life for the many people. And then you can say that our model is built on variables that others tries to avoid. And what do I mean with that? Well, the biggest challenge is that a lot of companies today is in love with their business model. As an example, we have retail. They're in love with their stores. They want people to come visit their stores, pick up their stuff, They see everything as competition or digital disruption. And I think many companies struggle with rethinking the business model. And that is exactly what we are doing, because we do not know if this is going to be profitable. I mean, we have our hypothesis, but it's going to take 5 to 15 years down the road, when the furniture has been used, when we can actually tell, are we being profitable or not? And that scares the shit about most leaders. But you know, we're humble when it comes to the tasks and what we must achieve, but we are extremely bold in our ambition. I think that is needed. So that was a bit about NORNORM and where I'm spending my time day and night. And the best and most interesting part is to do this in a circular way, and that we're also creating a positive impact. Because there is so much furniture out there that is not being used or ends up in a landfill. I think the number is 8.5 tons a year in just USA. And a lot of those furnitures are in perfectly good shape for another 10 years. And that we need to stop, and we're going to stop that. And then just to end this presentation, I just want to highlight the importance of incorporate the circular approach from day zero, and that businesses need to rethink their business model and making circularity a part of a profitable model, and not treating it as a side subject just to have some good lines in your yearly report. And I also think it's super important to be bold about your ambition, but humble in the execution and be realistic. But to highlight one more time, the circularity needs to be a part of your profitable business model when you plan for it. So that was everything I had to present. And yeah, that was NORNORM. And here you have my contact information if you want to know more, or if you're thinking about either implementing home office solution for all your employees, or if you're thinking about how you can rethink your offices for tomorrow.
Thank you, Emil. Fantastic, really inspiring. I don't know if we have any questions. I can't see any questions in Zoom right now, but I don't know if we have a question in the main sort of software for the conference. Doesn't seem so, but I have one. I mean, how ready do you think we are here in Sweden, for example, and in the Nordics for these kind of business models compared to, for example, Asia? I know you've been expanding into Singapore, for example. So yeah, can you expand on that?
Yeah, of course. I think it depends quite a lot on what kind of COVID restrictions each countries has had last couple of months in order for the maturity of the people or customers that we are discussing with. I think here in Sweden, where we have had quite few where have actually been possible to go into the office, I think the Swedish companies are quite mature in understanding that the office will change going forward, but they haven't really understand how it will change. They know that it will need to change, and that needs to happen during the fall when everyone is vaccinated and can start integrating with each other. But what is actually top of each minds in especially Sweden is the home office solution. Everyone understands that, and all of our research shows that people want to continue working from home approximately 2 to 3 days a week, but they also want to have the possibility to go into an office and collaborate with each other and interact. So from speaking to customers, they understand the need of creating more collaboration spaces to repurpose and to most likely change the layout and stuff like that. But the top of their agenda is how can they solve so all employees have a good ergonomic working station at home. And they also understand that everyone's home doesn't look the same. Someone is living in a small apartment and someone has a big house with their own office. That we are solving, and we are also taking on the administration of planning all the deliveries and stuff like that for €1 per employee per day. So it's basically less than a taxi cab a month for your employees, and you don't need to add any extra work for your HR managers or stuff like that. And then looking at other countries, for example, in Europe and in Asia, I think they have come quite further in understanding also that they need to change their office, and they're actually planning on doing that already. But I also think it's going to be like what we say in Sweden, catch-up effect in when we're going into the summer, when the fall is approaching and everyone understanding that, well, we're going to go back after summer in some way, not like as we did before COVID, but in some way we're going to go back, and then we need to change and update. So we're having a lot of discussions, and of course we have implemented more than 12,000 square meters in Holland and across Europe. So we have tested this, and we have customers testing this, and so I think this is it's quite good timing for us. Before COVID, no one spoke about offices and how to change your office and how to work with it. Now that is on top on everyone's agenda, even though everyone hasn't come to sense how they will change it, but they understand that a change is needed. Great. I don't know if that answered your question, but I hope it did.
Yeah, great. And you will be with us until the end here, Emil. Yeah. So if anyone in the audience have questions for Emil, you can post them in the chat throughout this session, or save them for the end. Thank you, Emil. Now let's move on to our next speaker. And he's a fashion designer. He's a founder of a company called Atacac. And he's, I would say, a general innovator with some innovative thoughts in his head. And among others, he has some innovative ideas about how we can price stuff to avoid using materials, unnecessary amounts of materials. So please welcome Rickard Lindqvist.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to present here today. In this session, do it right from the beginning. And I think so far I don't think I've done anything right from the beginning. I've done some projects less wrong, and some's been total failure. But I'm going to talk today about what I've been focusing on for the last 5 years within the brand Atacac, which me and Jimmy Hedberg, who is standing behind me in this image, founded in 2015. Jimmy has a background in digital communication and as a digital creator, building online experiences for various fashion brands throughout Europe. And not only fashion brands, but a lot of focus on fashion brands. My background is both in academia as a researcher at the Swedish School of Textile, and in the fashion industry as mostly freelance designer for various brands in Sweden and UK. But however, today, then I'll take you through some of the stuff me and Jimmy has been exploring within the Atacac project, and what I currently do at our industry, the offspring of Atacac. But first, I just want to quickly take you through part of how the fashion industry is kind of set up in generally. And from a circular perspective, the fashion industry hasn't been doing very good any time in the history. And during my lifetime, it's been sort of doing worse and worse, with outsourcing production to further and further away from the consumers for the last 40 years. And the setup is normally, from a brand perspective, that you have a process of 18 months from you present something until it's delivered to the final customer. And when me and Jimmy started Atacac, we've been focusing a lot on digitizing the design process and the whole process around it. And one key thing that we wanted to avoid was to have this time span of 18 months being forced to develop like 3 sample collections before getting any revenue back from sold goods. So we've been looking into what kind of happens if we digitize the design process and use that digital output for presentations. And instead of taking orders before production, like orders from stores before production and send it to a store, we thought that we can try to sell things based on our digital material and then deliver straight to the end consumer, which gives us a turnover time of about 1 month instead, and the possibility of actually getting paid before we produce the garments. And what I mean with digitizing the process in the fashion industry is creating digital 3D visualizations of the garments before even making any physical samples. And this is a screenshot from that software we using, the sort of industry-leading 3D software in the fashion industry, which is a Korean software called Klas. With this as a base, we've been focusing on creating virtual garments for real, meaning we've been producing both 3D rendered and communication materials of the garments before selling or producing any physical garments. So this is one example of how that could look. Here's another still of a 3D rendered garment where then the fabric has been scanned from an actual fabric. Here is a silk kaftan where we also created the print and sold the garments before even printing the fabric. It can also be used, yeah, of course, as a 3D image. You can see it from all angles, and you can, like in this example, showcase different colors or whatever it might be. We have also been elaborating and exploring quite a lot the possibilities of online fitting of garments. So in this example, you see this kaftan is available in 2 versions, a long and a short one. And as a consumer, then you can type in or drag here like weight or length. And here you'll see how it switches from short to long version here, if you go shorter. And yeah, it would look like that if you had the long version instead. So with all these digital assets, both the possibility of render photorealistic images of garments before making production or sampling, and also the progress in online fittings, we have in various shapes experimented in selling fashion garments on pre-order to end consumers. So our webs, we've done this online then, and our website has at a certain point looked like this: number of garments up for sale. And if you go click on one garment, you can see here this is a pre-order price of 145 euros, but when it's in stock, it will cost 180 euros, meaning that there is kind of a reversed sale setup. So instead of embracing the seasonal fashion pricing model, where most garments kind of loses the value in 6 months, turning, and the worst case are burnt if they're not sold. And we thought that, yeah, if we try to sell garments on pre-order and we communicate the different markup levels which is used in the industry, so you can see here, like normally 50% of the price you pay for something goes to retail, 25 to brand, and a bit of manufacturing materials. If we do it the other way around, that if when we offer something on pre-order, you get a sales price. Then after a few weeks of pre-ordering, we start production based on how many pre-orders we had and price is raised. And when we finish production and produce a small stock, then we offer it for full sale. And in order to be able to experiment all the way through with the setup, we started our own in-house manufacturing in Göteborg, Sweden, what we call a microfactory. That has now been splitted from the brand Atacac into our industry, where we both produce for Atacac, but also for external clients and do various design consultancies. Our industry, we just moved to new premises last week. Here's a short video from what it looks like in here today. It's still a bit messy from moving a lot of boxes and stuff, but it's a small scale textile factory. We have 8 employees from 6 different countries, machinists from Eastern Europe and Syria and Iran, with extensive experience from the manufacturing industry in their home countries. We are located in Rickard in Göteborg, Sweden. And today we use the latest technology in 3D visualization, but the actual manufacturing is fairly traditional. But we're moving towards getting digitized cutting and bringing in robotic assembling together with some Austrian researchers. And we've been all the way seeing the digitalization here as a way to develop the craftsmanship into the future, and sort of not going away from traditional crafts, but developing crafts and taking on new digital crafts. Just some example of that could be this slide where you see a physical garment, the same garment as a 3D model in scale 1:1 on the screen, and the production pattern on the 4th screen. And those patterns are then, which are used for the 3D simulation, is then printed out and used for the physical production too. And a last thing that I would like to share with you is regarding these patterns and designs, we also release as what we call shareware. That means that every time when we release a new design for sale physically, we also release the 3D model and the production pattern as free downloads on our website, meaning that you can either buy it or you can download these patterns and make them yourself. Or, I mean, the whole fashion industry is based on, frankly speaking, based on copying each other. So then I thought that rather than someone else does put in a lot of hours and do a bad copy of the work we've done, we provide the materials for them to make a perfect copy straight away. And these patterns that we provide is then ready for production with all sort of sizes and everything you need. So you can just download them and send them to a factory wherever in the world for production. So it could look like this. And on this, we put a Creative Commons license, meaning that anyone is allowed to use these patents commercially as long as they credit us back, and if they and also license them further on identical terms. And from I guess one could say that the share we're part of Atacac has been the most successful in terms of numbers, where we had more than 25,000 downloads of these 3D models and patents, while the sales of Atacac in garments been more on an experimental level, where we might have sold 1,000 garments over 5 years' time. But today I focus on our industry with the manufacturing in Sweden, which I see as a extremely interesting challenge and where there's loads of possibilities due to new technology. And Jimmy is now taking the lead of the brand Atacac. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I will do my best to try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Rickard. We are out of time, but I have a question for you. I can't see any question in the chat yet, but I have a question for you, and that is if you can try to answer this quite quick. But that's the question is what the reaction has been like in the fashion industry as a whole, the traditional fashion industry, and perhaps from the big guys when you talk about this pricing model, for example. Is this something that they like, or are they protesting against it, or yeah, what's the reaction?
I think no one is protesting against it. A lot of the larger companies have logistical problems such set up, but the interest has been very large, very big, because you know that all the larger corporations, they are aware of that the way they are making business is not a way that they will be allowed to operate in quite current future, quite near future.
Okay, thank you very much, Rickard. You will also stay with us until the end. So if anyone have questions for Rickard, you can save them for the end. Let's move on now to our next speaker, who is not really one speaker, but rather two speakers. And they will introduce us to the world of circular procurement, public circular procurement, that is, and how the public sector can start doing it right from the beginning by procuring the right stuff from the beginning, or even services. So we have Sven-Olof Ryding, who is a senior specialist at IVL, the Swedish Environmental Research Institute. And we also have Martina Thorsell, who is a procurement officer at Sysav, and have tried out circular procurement in real life. So welcome, and go ahead, Sven-Olof.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here and giving me the possibility to talk about circular procurement, which I refer to as a new procurement landscape. I'm going to focus on criteria for circular procurement, and I indeed would say that do it right from the beginning is to make use of the proper criteria. Otherwise, you may get lost, even though you have good ambitions to start with. Well, let me explain what I mean with a new landscape. And I would say environmentally adapted or sustainable procurement, I could say it's the present situation for the time being. It's typically based on a linear material flow. And in fact, the existing legislation we have today is based on a linear material flow. Usually you go straight to prepare your procurement document once you find out that you will buy something. Now we enter a new, I will say, concept, an era in the circular procurement. At the lower part of this illustration, based on the circular material flow. And I would say to a large extent, this is influenced by customer and market expectations and not from legislation and support from central organizations. So this is, I would say, you focus much more on formulating the proper requirement after you have looked through your needs analysis and your market analysis, for instance. Once you may find out that you might not even have to buy something, or you might have to hire something, or you couldn't find the supplier. So that is why this initial steps is nothing that you, I would say, use in the traditional way, but this is in fact the main concept for why we need a new concept for public procurement. So that is why I call it the new landscape. And I would say that I will present some of the ongoing results from resource projects. I've been involved and are still involved in a number of projects. And if you can see what I call resource 1, 2, and 3, these are interlinked projects starting one by one based on a specific form of assignments. We work with procurement criteria and also circular procurement in practice, because we need to look at what are the concerns and the needs from a market point of view. This is important. And we also have one project with a Swedish model for circular procurement, which is based on a traditional call for projects, and it will end, as you see, in the mid-22, which is a little bit more than a year ahead. So in one of our projects, we were expected to make use of international experiences, and we indeed found this in Belgium and the Netherlands. They have been very successful in working with circular procurement, all from the very top, from the government until the very end, the very small suppliers. So of course, we're a little bit envious because that seems to be a very good approach, but we possibly need to do it otherwise in Sweden. It is called the Green Deal. But don't forget, the Green Deal is not the Green Deal you possibly hear about today from the EU. But honestly, this was called the Green Deal from the very beginning. They presented this matrix, which we found very useful. And you can see that it started to separate the different types of actions. In the front line on top, you could see you can reduce the total amount, you could reduce the amount of virgin inputs, you can extend the product lifetime, maximize the use of reusable or recyclability of materials, etc., etc. But underneath this, you will find a lot of different alternatives. If you look at them and go through them, you will find that some of them are indeed overlapping. So this is something we need to develop much further with regard to criteria setting. So we found out what would be the next step from here. And I should say that this matrix, which we presented in a research report, was taken directly from the National Agency for Public Procurement. They found it useful as well. And you can find this matrix in an open, just recently opened websites from the National Agency for Public Procurement. But we thought we need to go a little bit more to find the proper criteria. So the first finding we saw is that you possibly need to divide, or you will have to see the procurement activity as positioned right in the middle between upstream and downstream processes. And this is important because it leads to shared responsibility between procurers and suppliers. So if you, for instance, look upstream, you may have to ask for a guarantee for the lifetime of a product, or a certain % of reused materials that you can ask for. And if you look at the downside, you as a user, you have to secure the necessary maintenance or repair, or even set up collection sites for materials and products for reuse and recycling. So I would say this is a shared responsibility, and all these interconnected links has to function. Otherwise, it won't work in practice. So my last illustration would be what type of approach did we found necessary to step take at the next step now to find the exact target criteria. So we grouped them in a life cycle perspective. We found out, going through all the literature we can find, 19 different types of activities, and we grouped them and listed them, as you can see in the table. Half of them is more or less linked to upstream processes where you can ask for a supplier to provide it, but you also have downstream activities, which you, in your community or wherever you are, you have to see to that it works. Otherwise, you will, as I mentioned, probably get lost. So this will also reflect on the way you can use and find your specific target criteria. And we started to do that in this table you can see on the right-hand side. We have found 7 different product groups. You can find building materials, transports, IT telecom, textile furnitures. You can find food, healthcare, and plastics. So we found quite a number of criteria looking through the literature and listened to the discussions we've had in these projects within resource. And we also found them to be best handled in a database, which we are working with right now. I should also say that we didn't find anything of use in the transport sector. So we have developed a calculation model for different types of vehicles, fuel consumption, transport routes, for instance, so we can calculate the final logistic solution for the final amount of climate impact. So we are working to make this even more filled up with crosses. We have 140 criteria right now collected for 7 product groups. And we hope that once we will finalize the research project, this will be a more complete version 2.0. I should also say that we call it the criteria cleavage, which would be the criteria leap 1.0. So I think this is one way of at least getting the people to find the right specific target purpose for the specific solution they want it to be used for. Thank you.
Really good. Thanks a lot, Sven-Olof. Since this is a shared session, I think we just move on directly to Martina. If you can share your screen with us, and we can have some questions afterwards.
Yes. There we go. Hello, I've been invited here today to talk a little bit about the circular procurement. I did about exactly a year ago in 2020. And it was a result of the participation in the Resource Circular Project Group. And just to walk you through it shortly, I work for a company called Sysav. It's based and owned by 14 municipalities in southern Sweden. That handles and treats its inhabitants' household waste, but also some industrial waste. And my employer considers waste to be a resource that should, as far as possible, be reused and recycled. Let's see. So what kind of procurement did we do? So essentially, when we signed up for the resource project, we did an inventory to see where to begin. And luckily, our marketing department already started looking into a circular solution for our collected gypsum waste, mainly consisting of plasterboards handed in by businesses and private individuals at our recycling stations. And well, the total extent is about 5,000 metric tons a year. And well, to notice as well, the current solution we had for handling the gypsum waste was classified as recycling. So how did it go? Well, this was my first circular procurement, and it went rather well. We had 5 different tenders, whereas 4 out of the 5 were qualified for further evaluation. And there was a vast range in the pricing, and in the end, the circular supplier ended up being a bit more pricey than the previous solution we had. And which obstacles did we encounter and how did we go about it? Well, the main issue I encountered was that our strategic agenda said one thing and our yearly budget said another, meaning that we did not make room for any more expensive circular solutions in our 2020 budget. And the degree of anchoring within the own company just wasn't good enough. And well, since we wanted to move the hierarchy, but didn't set aside the budget for it, not saying that all circular solutions would be more expensive, but in this case, the early market research implied so. So by raising the question, what was more important, a circular use for the gypsum waste or staying within the budget? I got different answers depending on, well, from different departments within the company, of course. But in the end, you see who won. We got the circular solution. So what have we learned for future circular procurements? Well, we've certainly learned that we need to anchor the agenda, the budget, and to establish the conversation within the organization and with the intended markets at an early stage. All to set the correct budgets, make room for budgets, and to ensure that you're all working towards the same goals and aspirations. And words of encouragement or tips and tricks for other fellow circular procurers. Well, create networks is a good start, both within your own organization, but also with other fellow peers and suppliers. And last but not least, patience. Patience, patience, patience. Some need to think longer than others and are a bit foreign to changes. An example, the solution we already got works, so the supply is great, the cost is low, and so on, so on. But that must not be the one that decides. Can the market meet our needs? If not, how can we make it work with both the market, but still they get a solution that is sufficient to us? So patience. And with those last words, I'd like to say thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, both Sven-Olof and Martina. We actually need to move on in the session here, but Martina, you mentioned here that you sort of won here. The circular alternative won. What would have happened if you didn't win?
Well, then we would go back to the recycling solution, not meaning the circular solution, because it was less expensive.
Okay, and that solution more specifically, what would that be? Putting it on landfill or?
Yeah, landfill.
Yeah. No. Great, thanks a lot. Like I said, save your questions for Martina and Sven-Olof to the end of this whole session. We will have to move on to our next speaker and the final speaker of today. He is, as our previous speaker, Rickard, involved in the fashion industry and also involved in challenging this fashion industry. He is the CEO of the design studio Guringo and the man behind the material called Stream Materia, among others. And he is here to share our thoughts on among others, how disposable can be a fantastically sustainable alternative. So please welcome Erik Lindvall.
Yes, thank you. My name is Erik Lindvall, and I am the CEO of Guringo Design Studio in Stockholm, and I'm here to present a recent startup that we have been working on for 7 years now that's called Stream Materia, and that we offer zero waste clothing for humans and avatars. And Stream Materia is our ambition is a radically new way to challenge or to take on the challenges of the overconsumption within the fashion industry in a kind of radical new way. So we make material that is compostable with a short lifespan and that is designed to die from the very beginning. We tend to explain it with, you can compare with how the forest works. And if we are to create a true transformation towards a renewable or circular system, we need to implement time within our products, because there is no status quo or permanence within a circular system. It's either entropy or progress. Then it depends on how fast or slow it goes, but we are kind of focused, we're stuck in the industrial paradigm, this definition of what quality is, and that is something that lasts a long time. We see as upon the forest as consumption per se is not a bad thing. It depends. I mean, the ecosystem, the forest, or the biosphere, for that matter, relies on consumption of lives, of leaves, of insects, of grass, or of trees. But it all has to bring benefit or values to the other stakeholders within the ecosystem. And for the forest, as an example, a tree cannot decide how long it gets to live. It is decided by the forest itself. So if we are to create a productions that is circular, we need to look upon the biosphere as a stakeholder at the table. And everything we produce need to bring value to that stakeholder also. And to do this, we see that we need to implement time. And instead of kind of embracing the consumer expectations of the product, that would be the quality, something that lasts long, we aim to change the consumer expectations of a product to become an experience instead. So by doing this, we want to leave the comfort zone of the industrial paradigm that we know that we own something, we have something, either if we rent it or so. I mean, there are super good ideas about this, and we are not challenging everything. We are offering another option. But seeing how this can be truly an experience that is cost something, it's cost ownership, it doesn't stay. It's like food that you can manufacture or produce and is consumed fresh. By doing this, you get enhanced experiences, you get access to an unlimited system of design experiences, but they go away. They're just staying for a short time. And by doing this, we can offer ways of still doing what we love, but in new ways, rather than stop doing the things we love, and then we might make it. So this idea came to life 7 years ago. It was actually in a meeting with Rice in another project, and then we got this idea about clothes that actually grows old on your body. So we wrote a manifest and did a fashion story. I come from the fashion industry as a photographer. So we painted this picture about clothing that you could consume without a guilty conscience, that actually were good for the biosphere, that you could portion out where it was needed as nutrition or raw material for new resources rather than waste. So what we are aiming for, I need to emphasize this, is to just reduce the word waste from the whole equation. But this idea started as a fantasy, but then we got approached by different actors, and we said, yeah, let's try it for real. So we have been trying to explore this conceptual idea for 7 years, and now we're launching a startup that is offering it this material and this design system for real. So the material, then, if we go to the hard facts, it's a biomimical material that is designed to die from the beginning. So we produce it it contains cellulose and residues from the food industry, and we look upon the food waste as where we want to leave it, because then we have the logistics already set up with the food, with the whole the domestic food waste system. Since we have alcohol, we have fat and stuff in the products already, it has a really good biogas potential. It's similar to food. It's 320 liters per kilo, and food has about 400. So it's 100% compostable, and it's even good for the biogas production. So we can get climate neutral energy from it. The material also carries biofunctions, which we tend to call biofunctions because it has thermal regulating qualities. It cools, say, a runner. If we make a running top or singlet, it cools the runner, by attracting water and sweat and containing it within the garment. We have also components that you see in traditional dermatological products. So it's skin treating, and it can also absorb or add skin absorbents to the material that you as a user can absorb through the skin. And since the manufacturing is automated and customized, we can portion it to the consumer where the consumer wants it on his or her body. Finally, the material is made by microfactories, automated microfactories that can be deposited wherever we want, basically, and use locally sourced resources. That would be fibers and residues from the food industry. So it works pretty much like this. We design the garment in Clo 3D, as Rickard was talking also about earlier. It's our go-to program. So we design the garments virtually, and then we print a scaffolding or a mesh that you can compare to with a capillary system of a leaf. That is a skeleton to the garment, because we coat it with a emulsion or foam that was kind of needed a stronger structure. We moved away a bit from this, but it's still there in some applications. And this is done on a 3D printing device, automated 3D printing device, where every pattern is made simultaneously. So we do the material as well as the design or the garment patterns at the same time. Then we dry these patterns, and we weld or stitch them together to become a wearable product that you wear once or twice. And then once you're done with it, it becomes resources to new raw material, and that could be green chemicals or nutrition or biogas. Here we have 3 different cases that we can focus on for now. To the right, we see a green dress, and that represents the bespoke fashion, the one-offs for parties, for weddings, for holidays, where we can see that we tend to use these garments once or twice, and then we never use them again. So we don't need to keep them as a guilty conscience in our wardrobe. We can, or as a bad conscience for consuming, we can just throw them in the food compost to become energy or raw material. In the middle, we see a running singlet that focusing on the biofunctions. That's for the athleisure market that we're looking into functional garments. And to the left, we see an example of a 3D garment. And this is really interesting for us because we started working with the gaming industry, where we can produce skins for games, and then we can when there's a launch of a game, they can be maybe the first ones in the communication campaign or whatever. You can bring some of the garments out of the virtual reality to become physical holograms for a while that the consumer can get to wear without a guilty conscience once or twice. And we also last year we did a collab with Puma Innovation, where we produced a conceptual collection with running singlets, focusing mainly on the biofunction and the story behind that, because so you don't get to own or keep the stuff. So what other values can we offer that is better than having it in the wardrobe or using it again and again with an ecological impact? As an example, we can say that so the runner gets a cooling function. It absorbs sweat, so it cools the runner. That's an added value, but it comes with a price. And the price is that since you sweat and the garment contains components that absorbs water until a point where they break down, they get too much water and they dissolve. So you might need to get to the goal within 2 hours or 20 kilometers. Otherwise, you will be naked. And this is a way to understand how circular systems work. It is a way to describe the potential of this perspective or this material. But it is also a way for us to embrace circular system and in the end life and death. We need to understand that nothing lasts forever. It's either progress or entropy. And it's also Cinderella, one of the most known stories to us that we can retell. So I know we have heard this before, and it's really interesting because these are the times we are comparing this. We have set up a system for a unlimited access of design that we don't own, that we can download and print in local micro factories, and then we can use them for once or twice and then just leave them without a guilty conscience. And I need to emphasize this, that we need always to produce the material that they need to be a value to the biosphere. That is where most logistic chains end with a consumer. We need to see where does it go. So we need to, when we do these garments, they need to have value for the biosphere. Where we are today is that we have been able to print the garments with a automated 3D device without the scaffolding, and we can now stitch in it with a compostable thread, and we can make compostable buttons. And this shirt is made under 8 minutes on demand. So there's it's drying phase for about 20 or 30 minutes. So we can produce it under an hour for the consumer for now. And this is something we aim to shorten quite a lot in the future. There is a Japanese expression called mono no awara that could be translated to the passing of time or the sadness of things. And you can explain it with, if you're alone walking in the forest in the autumn and you're feeling kind of sad and lonely, that is you actually feeling the passing of time. And you can also say that a scream from a bird that is echoing over a lake is much more beautiful in the distance than if you heard it constantly screaming into your face. Or a cherry blossom flower is more beautiful when it's actually dropping. The moment it drops from the branch to the ground, it's more beautiful than when it's stuck on the branch. And this is something that we need to understand and emphasize, that there is something beautiful within the moment, and there is a value in that. And that is the core to circular systems. And also a way for us to bring this radical idea into our communication, into the stronger understanding. And that's pretty much from me. And thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you very much, Erik. Really nice touch at the end, especially for me as an engineer. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about stuff that way. So it's really good for me to hear that. Just a question for you. Can you expand a little bit on how are people usually reacting to when you come and say that we are doing disposables, they are designed to die, etc.? Are they reacting? Is it a positive reaction or a negative, or yeah?
I would say it's a very positive reaction. It's I usually give them a broadside with a lot of information, a lot of ideas. So it takes quite some time to kind of digest all this, because we have a different take. And the usual comment is, but what about my grandmother's old linen pants? Can't I use them anymore? That's pretty much what they say. And of course, it's not a totalitarian idea. It's an option that we're offering, and it's a perspective, but it is also something, maybe you can't own your grandmother's linen pants. You might see them as your grandmother's, soup or something that you can't keep in your cupboard, or but you can remake it as a recipe. So you can experience it with your senses, but you can't own it. But it tends to we open some doors that you really can't turn back from once you think about this perspective. So I think it's quite positive. Yeah.
Really good. Thanks a lot, Erik, for providing us with this perspective. We now go into the panel discussion, and yet again, I would like to invite everyone in the audience to post questions in the chat. Please do that. We also have now Matilda Jarbin joining us in this discussion, and she is the Chief Operating Officer at GIAB Godsinlösen. And Matilda, perhaps you can spend 1 minute presenting yourself and pitching Godsinlösen, perhaps.
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Matilda. As Klas said, I'm working as a COO and Sustainability Manager at GIAB. And we are a company that's been running for 8 years now. And our business idea is to implement circular processes to our customers. And we do that by reusing consumer products. So our large clients, it's insurance companies and logistics companies and e-commerce. So we have developed a service that take care of damaged goods, but also reclamation and returns from the e-commerce. And we collect them and manage them and repair if that's necessary and sell them again. Very shortly describe.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And now I would also like all the other speakers to put on their cameras and mics. And since we don't have, to my knowledge, any questions yet, I would like to give each of the presenters here, the possibility of answering to a question here. And please keep it short. I give you, try to keep a question about like 30 seconds, and we can have reactions to your questions afterwards. And my question is, why do you guys think that we're not seeing more companies wanting to do it right from the beginning and really embracing this concept of right from the beginning, and really transforming and rethinking the way we do business and yeah. So if I start from the start, Emil, do you want to answer the question? 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Well, I think first the definition of right from the beginning is changing over time. So it's also hard to understand what was right in the time that the company was actually being started. And then I also think, like I was saying during my presentation, that companies are in love with their current business model, and they're not bold enough to challenge that and to go into the unknown and try to do something and disrupt their own business. But then also, why fix something that is not broken? But then you can also define what is broken and stuff like that. So I think it's a complex question, but I think everyone needs to just challenge themselves and try to to do the right thing.
Very good. Rickard, what would be your answer? Do we have Rickard with us?
Rickard is unfortunately not with us.
Oh, okay, that's a shame. Then let's move on to Sven-Olof and Martina. Are you still with us?
Yes, I am, if you hear me.
Yes.
My answer from the procurement point of view is that I find there's a catch-22 situation. If no procurer asks for circular products, nothing will happen on the market. because they don't find it on the market. And if no one asks for it, nothing will happen on the market. So someone has to be brave enough to make use of criteria. If so, they will start to respond to this. And that's how it all starts. It's a catch-22. That's the way I see it. And that's why I'm so eager that we need to find the right criteria. And they are more or less becoming visible right now. So I would say the brave procurers make use of circular procurement, and you will find that the market will respond to this.
Thank you. And then Erik.
Yeah, I agree with Emil there that it's a hard question. What is right? And I mean, you never know. You can't bet on something that's then turned out. I mean, organic cotton was right and then it was wrong. So if you bet a business model, a lot of money in something, and then it just, it's really hard. But so I would like to, as I said before, it's all about defining quality. We need to stop, and this I know is taking on the whole industry, in every industry. But I really need to say that again, we need to redefine the word quality. We can't define quality as something that has, lives a long time. And you see it in every presentation everywhere. We need to make products that last longer. And that is, for me, something we need to redefine in certain cases. I mean, oak tree for 1,000 years, an insect for a day. So to redefine quality, and we will get there.
Great. And Matilda, and please also, Matilda, you also have experience from trying to get into the world of circular procurement. And when you have answered this question, you could perhaps also indulge us a little bit on your experiences from trying to do that.
Yeah. So the first answer that came up in my head is that I think the reason is that the linear system have been so successfully, if we look back, if we look at growth, and if we look very short, as a lot of companies and organizations do, like short term, the linear concept is, I mean, it's very good and easy. So I think that's the it's very hard to go to a circular economy because the linear concept it's been very successful. If we look at procurement, yes, it's true. We have tried to start to work with municipalities, for example, but it's very hard to answer a procurement today because they are very linear. So, for example, a municipality wants to buy smartphones for their organizations. It says we want to buy new smartphones, and then we can't answer that procurement. So it's been very, very difficult. And what we have seen is that you need to have a very tight dialogue and communication to actually, like Sven-Olof said, they need to know that we are here. There is companies on the market that can provide the circular services, but I think there's a large gap between the public sector and the companies, and we have to try to meet so we can meet their demands, because I know that we can provide the services.
Great. Now we actually have a question in the chat from Mairi, and it's to any of the speakers, but I would like to invite Emil to answer to this. I think I know one of you other can also answer it afterwards, perhaps. Do you see the general public getting more eager and ready to rent/subscribe over owning products, or is it slow progress and linked to generational differences?
I think it's both yes and no on that question. I think looking on a high level, we see that people are subscribing more and more. But when going into like new products area of subscribing and not owning, I think we have first like a barrier that they just need to understand that it's possible and to accept that themselves. But when they have accepted it and understood it, then I think the ramp up is quite fast. You can also scale it quite fast. So I think we need some early adopters to like secure the proof the proof points, and when other ones sees that it's possible, then it goes quite fast. That's my understanding as of today.
Thank you. And a question for perhaps Erik. Who would you say is the typical customer for this stream material garments for you guys?
It kind of depends on the application. If we do a running singlet or say a disposable thermal garment, we have New York Marathon 2019 ended up with 54 tons of clothing waste after the start, where people have their garments on wearing them, just throwing them in the gutter. So here we could put up a microfactory and produce all the garments that you can sell to the runners together with the application fee for a couple of dollars to wear that. And then you can just collect it in big bags and turn it into biogas. We also see, we have studies in UK where we have people tend to use wedding outfits as guests. You don't have the same outfit twice, which means, and they spend approximately 800 or 900 Swedish crowns on each outfit. So these are typical applications, weddings, holidays. They use it just people, there's millions and millions of crowns, people buying stuff to wear on holiday and just on the holiday. One garment out of 20 in Sweden are used only once. So all of these applications we're focusing on, like party tops or stuff, where we can embrace the democratization of what you wear. Instead of saying fashion should be boring, where we are heading right now, we should wear black. I mean, a lot of us are wearing black, and we should have, the base layers should be just something you can use over and over again. We need to look where we can express ourselves without a guilty conscience. So those are the customers that we are aiming for.
And Matilda, we were into this, what is right and what is wrong from the beginning, the definition, but I would say that you guys, you started out a circular business from the beginning. However, you are relying on someone else's products or other companies that put the products on the market to start with. Would you say that from your experience working with, for example, smartphones, are they designed the right way from the beginning, from your perspective?
No, if they were designed in a circular way, we wouldn't have our business. So we are very reliable on someone else's very linear business model. For example, Apple and Samsung and so on, if they have built modular phones and phones that doesn't break so easily, we wouldn't have our business. If we consumers wouldn't buy so much stuff on the internet and then just send back and never use the clothes that we buy, for example, we wouldn't have our business either. So it's in the future, I hope personally that we will do something else.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah. Is there anyone, do we have any more questions? I can't see any questions in Zoom.
Can I deliver a quick response?
Yes.
I would like to say that those of you who have been successful from renting or other circular activities, please bring these experiences publicly available, because access to good examples is a very effective way influencing other procurers that may be a little bit hesitant today.
Really good, really good. And Sven-Olof, do you have in the back of your head one example that you would like to present here, really short, one really good that could really encourage others to follow?
Well, then I certainly would look at the building sector, where there is a lot of information right now, but we have to realize as well that there is a law coming on climate declarations on building materials, on circularity and things like that. So maybe I would say that the decision makers, they shouldn't sleep. I mean, they could do what they can with legislation, and that could be one thing. In the building sector, this will prove to be very successful. But as I mentioned several times, this is something that it's an I would say a lot of influences will come from practical experiences on the market, and that's the why we are trying to capture all good ideas from market experiences. So they have to work both, but I would like to get politicians and decision makers a little bit more active in the procurement areas. They could do a lot in the future.
Really good. We have now run out of time, or we are running out of time in a couple of seconds. So I would just like to thank all the presenters and thank the audience for this session. And I look forward to keep on discussing what is right and what is not right from the beginning over the years. So thanks a lot, and let's see each other out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.